Cresta, thanking you for being with me. We're looking today during our direct to my desk discussion about a story which just hit my desk this morning. And the leading Protestant adoption agency, Bethany Christian Services, will now work with same-sex couples looking to foster or adopt children. Now, this is a change of its nationwide policy. This goes back to lots of mistakes that I believe Christian people have made in modern culture. We have cooperated with the state in this area. It's not necessary. There's absolutely no reason the state has to have control over adoption. But what's happened is we've had decades now of cooperation between church and state. And now the state has changed the rules. And the church organizations have built themselves up in a partnership that's now being broken. And that's what's going on here. We've got a breaking of faith in our previous relationship. There isn't the respect for religious liberty that these church organizations originally had counted on.
This hour of Cresta in the Afternoon is co-produced by Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
This is John Martinoni of the Bible Christian Society. I'm excited to also be teaching high school apologetics with homeschoolconnections.com, an online Catholic curriculum provider and a sponsor of this station. Your student can meet with me and fellow students online for a live, interactive class. Whether you take apologetics with me, literature with Joseph Pierce, or writing with Aaron Brown, or any of the other 400-plus courses with homeschoolconnections.com, online Catholic learning for your homeschooling family is available for you.
This is Father Rudy Garcia, pastor of St. Francis Catholic Church in Frisco, Texas, inviting you to join us for our parish Lenten mission beginning Monday, March the 8th through Saturday, March the 13th. The theme will be Creating Disciples of Compassion, led by Father Ron Gonzalez. Please join us from 6:30 to 9 each evening that week in the main church. March the 8th through the 10th in English, March 11th through the 13th in Spanish. For more information, visit our parish website at stfoafrisco.org.
KATH 910 AM welcomes Five Diamond Service as a new sponsor. It's owned by Oscar Castañeda from St. Monica Catholic Church in Dallas. They're a family-owned and operated business. Oscar invites you to contact Five Diamond Service to see how they can help you with any residential, commercial, construction, and post-construction cleaning services. You can visit their website, fivediamondservice.com, or reach them via phone at 214-317-1055.
Our Lady of Lebanon Maronite Catholic Church in Louisville is currently seeking a full-time administrative assistant for the parish. Qualifications for the position include being an active member of a Catholic faith community and knowledgeable in the faith, a bachelor's degree, knowledgeable and experienced in using a computer, including Microsoft Office, experience in business correspondence, and excellent English grammar and writing skills. If interested, submit a cover letter and resume to ladyofl719@gmail.com.
Are you wondering what to do with the house and need to talk with someone who can explain your options? My name is Jake, and as real estate investors, my brother Gerald and I are working to resolve real estate issues in your local area. We're proud sponsors of this great radio station, so if you're looking for an offer or simply like to explore your different choices, then our number to call is 682-317-9330, or you can simply visit us at 911myhouse.com.
Thanks for listening to KATH 910 AM, Frisco, Dallas, Fort Worth, and North Texas. Catholic radio for your soul on the Guadalupe Radio Network. Heard also at grnonline.com and on your smartphone. Celebrating the culture of life. This is the Guadalupe Radio Network. Radio for your soul. Welcome to Back to the Father, a show about the journey of life focused on our final end, which is God Himself, our loving Father. And now, here's your host, Dave Palmer.
And good afternoon, and welcome to Back to the Father here on the Guadalupe Radio Network, 4 o'clock Central Time, 5 o'clock Eastern. We're glad you're with us. We are digging into the Summa Theologia, and glad you're with us. Getting a lot of comments during the week. People are enjoying it, learning the Summa, and we try to make it as easy to understand as possible, not too deep. And so we're glad you're here, and we especially are happy when we get to hear from you either through the phone. You can call us at 877-757-9424, 877-757-9424. Let us know, is this stuff making sense to you? Are you lost? Are you digging it? You know, I get emails during the week and people say, gosh, I really love it. In fact, Sissel, you don't know this.
I don't know usually a lot of things, but
you don't know anything because we know. I got an email from a very, very well-known EWTN radio personality, and I won't embarrass him. You know, he can call in if he wants, if he's listening
today. You're
today.
scaring me when you say things like that.
And he said, I was listening to your show, and I had just gotten into this debate with this was it a Mormon, Jehovah's Witness? I think it was a Mormon. And he said, we were talking about the Trinity and the inner workings of the Trinity. And he said, I see. Then I tuned into your show, and he said, why couldn't your show have been 3 hours earlier? Because that's what we talked about last week. So anyways, and I told him, I said, you should have called in. It would have been so exciting to have you call in. But I won't. I'm sure it's not a big deal for me to say who it is.
Morse code, and I'll figure out who it is.
Let's just say he's one of the hosts of a very early morning show. It's not Joe McClain. It's not somebody of the GRN. Okay, very early morning show on the WTN network. Okay, let's just say that. All right, welcome everybody. Dave Palmer is my name. Sissel Anderson is hers. She is sporting a new hat every week. What do we got?
Yes.
Kind of a...
I'm going to call it's a straw hat, and I'm calling it the color chicken nugget. And
chicken nugget. Okay, I like that.
I couldn't figure out how to describe
it. It's not a collar.
It is a collar.
All right.
And it has a very convenient little elastic strap so that if I ever encounter wind, it is safe on my head. It's an adventure hat, I think.
Well, it's very likely you're going to encounter wind in life. So, all right, Diane Xavier is running the board flawlessly, getting people on the line, answering your calls at 877-757-9424. Diane also set up our social media platforms. And if you go to Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, not only will you get to see us and Sissel's hat and Diane, even if there's an angle on her, but you also get to follow along because I read excerpts from the Summa. And sometimes if you're just hearing it, it's one thing. I try to, say it slowly, but if you see it, you get another sense experience of the Summa and the brilliance of St. Thomas Aquinas. And so just go to one of those platforms, as many people have done, and follow along with us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. The handle is at GRN Online?
Yes,
okay,
you got
thank
it.
you. Okay. All right. And our trusty intern, Jonathan von Weber-Hansberg. I still have to write that down. I'm still trying to figure, that's such a cool name. Jonathan von Weber-Hansberg, whom I learn something new about every week. I learned a couple of weeks ago he's a big fish aficionado, and I learned now he's got like a master Irish accent.
Oh, yes. We've been waiting for St. Patrick's Day so that he can practice it.
Yeah, so we're glad to have him with us. And you know what? Today was a day that we've been anticipating for a long time here in the Guadalupe Radio Network, because back in January, we got in the year, we did our car raffle kickoff show, and we kept saying, March 5th, that's going to be the day that we draw the winner of the 2021 Mercedes-Benz GLA 250 SUV. And by golly, just as we promised, we did it this morning. And in case you weren't tuning in at 7:10 Central Time on Catholic Drive Time, we drew a winner. And that winner was from the San Antonio area. And I don't have the winner on with me, but the next best thing is Richard Rene, who is our general manager down in South Texas, joins us for a couple of minutes. Richard, good afternoon.
How you doing, Dave? Are you doing all right today?
Yeah. Now, why'd you get another winner? There's no justice in the world, man. How did that work out?
I couldn't say it's because of all the ticket sales. We got another
Well, you sold you sold at least one.
More than last year.
Yeah. So, anyways, were you watching or listening this morning at 7:10 as Joe?
I sure was. It was exciting, and to see how it all unfolded. And then to hear as soon as I mentioned the name, I go, it's funny. As soon as I heard the first name, I go, I know who that is. And sure enough, it was who I thought it was. And, it was very exciting. Jeannie Knotts and her husband Sam Knotts out of the Our Lady of Perpetual Help in Selma, here in the northeast part of San Antonio, where they're winners. And it was so neat because all those GMs want somebody in our markets to be the one that gets drawn, and they're avid listeners of the station and good supporters. And you know me, I made the mistake of calling her while she was attending Holy Mass.
Oh, man. Come on, Richard.
No, I was like, God,
That's a great call to get after you get out of Mass,
Now,
though.
I hope you didn't leave a message and say, oh, by the way, you won the Mercedes, because did you, or did you just say, hey, call me back, right?
No, I just said, hey, I got some great news for you. Call me back. You know, today's Friday, and we did the raffle. Hint, hint.
Gee, I wonder what the news could be, right?
Yeah, do you know this other person? No.
I remember trying to call somebody one time who won a pilgrimage, and I think they kept avoiding me because they thought I was, calling for a donation or something, and I never told them it was good news, and it took me like 2 weeks to tell them they won.
Oh my goodness.
All right, so Richard, when you finally got her on the line, you talked to her, what was her reaction?
She's her and her husband are so sweet, Dave. I know. I'd venture to say that no two sweeter people should have won this car than them. Very well deserving. You could tell she was holding back the tears, and she had talked about how 2020 had been actually such a blessed year for them, and they've received so many blessings to continue on into this year, which is not something we're normally used to hearing right now. But I just can't believe how good the Lord has been to us. And well, it sounds to me like you're well deserved, and she was excited, of course, and it was so neat. It just, I don't know, I felt like my mom won the car, and I was giving it to her and calling her, and it was just a sweet call. I'm very thrilled.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so congratulations to her. It's Jeannie Knotts, Universal City, and I think you said her husband Sam. Is that right?
Sam, correct.
Okay, yes, Sam and Jeannie Knotts, and appreciate their being avid listeners. I know a couple years ago, the gentleman who won one of the cars, he was not like an avid listener. He was just at a parish one day and decided, hey, what the heck? I'll buy some tickets.
I'm sure he was after, though, right?
Yeah, a bigger fan afterwards. All right, Richard. Yeah. Hey, thanks so much. We got to get to the Summa, okay? And enough of this car raffle stuff.
That hat on Thistle looks great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
God bless you
all.
all.
Well, thanks, Richard. Good talking to you. Congratulations on selling the winning ticket there, Richard Rene down South Texas. See, all they say, Mario last week said I look like Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, actually, he wrote on Facebook, he says, where is Dave's Mr. Rogers sweater? And I told him he has to start a petition to bring it back.
It's not cool enough to wear a Mr. Rogers. I mean, I don't mean cool as it's not cold enough. It's kind of a warm day.
It's always in style.
Yeah. So anyways, I do like the Mr. Rogers sweaters, and so I'll bring those back. Maybe that could be my thing, here on it. All right. Don't forget, if you go to our social media platforms, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, comment. We love to hear from you. You're never bugging us. And let us know how you're doing, how this is making sense. And basically what we do in this show, the first segment, I teach. Okay, I give you some heavy meat to chew on from the Summa. And second segment, we open it up for calls and comments. And Sissel kind of lets us know what she made of it, and also talk about anybody who commented on the social media platforms as well. And then the third segment, we say, why does this matter? Why are we studying, and how does this particular lesson from the Summa make any difference to 21st century people like us? Why are we studying this, guys? So anyways, that's what we're going to do, and let's get right to the teaching. I do want to say real quickly, though, happy birthday to our dear Thomist friend, Adrian Fonseca. My birthday was yesterday. His is today. And did you know, back in 1274, on March 7th, St. Thomas Aquinas passed away at the age of 49. And so he has an alternate feast day, which is March 7th. His typical feast day is January 28th. And I honestly don't know for the life of me why they picked January 28th. Maybe somebody knows. But he died on March 7th, 1274. And so that's an alternate feast day. So this Sunday, when you're at Mass, lift up a prayer to the great angelic doctor, St. Thomas Aquinas. Okay? All right, today's topic is the truth and lies according to St. Thomas Aquinas. Pontius Pilate asked Jesus, what is truth? And we also know from Scripture that Jesus called himself the truth, the way, and the life. All right. And in the third segment, we'll talk about some of the ways, perhaps more so than any time I can remember, maybe the most ever in the history of the world, that truth is under assault, especially when it comes to identity and sexuality and the transgender thing. It's so sad. And I know those people are suffering, but truth is really, really taking a hit. And so we'll talk about that in the third segment. So let me get straight to the teaching part of it, and go ahead and be like Sissel and take notes if you'd like. But just a quick review that, I feel like I need to do this just because I want to set up for where and when St. Thomas Aquinas talks about truth in the Summa. First question, the Summa talks about the nature and extent of sacred doctrine. He basically says, hey, we are destined for heaven, and heaven is our end. God is our end. It's beyond us. It's supernatural, and the only way we're ever going to really know about it is if God, through His Holy Mother Church, tells us about it. Okay, so that's sacred doctrine. And then in question 2 and beyond, we get into the attributes of God. Question 2 is the existence of God. Okay, this is where we find the famous 5 proofs for the existence of God. And then God is simple, God is perfect. And then in question 5, he says, okay, goodness in general. All right, and now he's saying, okay, so God can be found not only in himself, but in the created world, okay? So we can look around and we can find God, so to speak, through the goodness that we experience in the world. And then question 6 is God's goodness. Number 7 is infinity of God. And then number 8, the existence of God in things. Okay, so all of a sudden now we're saying, okay, we're learning about God, but we're also learning about how does he exist in things? Okay, by giving them existence and being. And then the immutability of God, the eternity of God, the unity of God. And then question 12, how God is known by us. And then the names of God, God's knowledge of ideas is question number 15. Okay, so right then, question 16, right after we learn all this about God and how the created world participates in God's perfection and goodness and simplicity and all that, right? We get the question on truth. All right away in the 16th question. And so this is obviously something that's really important, and he's tying it in to God himself. Okay, and one of the questions he asks is whether God is truth. Okay, St. Thomas says, truth is found in the intellect according as it apprehends a thing as it is, and in things according as they have being conformable to an intellect. This is to the greatest degree found in God, for his being is not only conformed to his intellect, but it is the very act of his intellect. Remember, God is existence, God is his intellect, God is his will, God is just, he's not, okay. And his act of understanding is the measure and cause of every other being and of every other intellect. And he himself is his own existence and his act of understanding. Okay, whence it follows not only that truth is in him, but that he is truth itself and the sovereign and first truth. Okay, so as we continue the cultural debate about what is truth and why does it matter, it ties in immediately to God because God is truth. Okay, so keep that in mind, all right? Now, this is really interesting because he asks in another article in the same part of the Summa whether truth resides only in the intellect. Okay, now get this, because this is going to be very applicable to our modern day debates about truth, okay? He says, everything is said to be true absolutely insofar as it is related to the intellect from which it depends. And thus it is in that artificial things are said to be true as being related to our intellect. For a house is said to be true that expresses the likeness of the form in the architect's mind. All right, so an architect conceives of the idea of a house, and then he has the house built. Okay, so the truth of that house pre-existed in the architect's mind. All right, if you think about, sometimes people write a song. I think about the song American Pie. You know that one by Don McLean?
Love it.
And people are like, what does that song mean? And everybody is, it has a lot of theological implications in that song, right? The meaning of that song is in the mind of Don McLean, because he is the one who wrote it, okay? So you and I can interpret it any way we want, but the truth of what that song means exists in Don McLean. Now, Thomas did not talk about Don McLean in the Summa, but that's just an example, okay? And then he goes on and says, words are said to be true so far as they are signs of truth in the intellect, okay? Now, get this. In the same way, natural things are said to be true insofar as they express the likeness of the species that are in the divine mind. Then he gives an example. For a stone is called true, which possesses the nature proper to a stone, according to the preconception in the divine intellect. Okay? So, the truth of natural things. Natural things would be anything that is in the created world. We are natural things, okay? We are things created by God. So, our truth, and the truth of every natural thing, resides in the intellect of God. So, God names us. We don't name ourselves. All right? So, that's important, and that's obviously very applicable to 21st century America. All right, we go on. A few more articles. He asks, later on in the Summa, in the second part of the Summa, he has a whole section on justice. And he has another section on truth, which falls under the cardinal virtue of justice. And he says, is truth a virtue? Okay, so first of all, he says, it is by reason of which a thing is said to be true, and thus truth is not a virtue, but the object or end of a virtue, because taken in this way, truth is not a habit, which is the genus containing virtue, but a certain equality between the understanding or sign and the thing understood or signified. So he's saying the truth, the actual thing, the truth, is not a virtue, all right? Secondly, he says, truth may stand for that by which a person says what is true, in which sense one is said to be truthful. This truth or truthfulness must needs be a virtue, because to say what is true is a good act, and virtue is that which makes its possessor good and renders his action good. So now we know two things. God is truth. The truth of natural things resides in God first, in God's mind, so to speak, right? And it's also a virtue. All right. He goes on and says, is truth a special virtue? He likes to say this every now and then. Is it like really important? Is it a really special virtue? He says the nature of human virtue consists in making a man's deed good. Consequently, whenever we find a special aspect of goodness in human acts, it is necessary that a man be disposed thereto by a special virtue. And since, according to Augustine, good consists in order, it follows that a special aspect of good will be found where there is a special order. Now, there is a special order whereby our externals, whether our words or deeds, are duly ordered in relation to something, as sign to things signified. And therefore, man is perfected by the virtue of truth. Wherefore, it is evident that truth is a special virtue. Okay, so that's really important. All right, now we're going to get into something really interesting, okay? Thomas is going to say, okay, truth is really important, and there has to be an order between what's in our mind and the words we speak. And he said, is every lie a sin? Okay, we talked about this briefly last week when Adrian was on the phone with us. Get this. Tell me if you agree about this in the next segment. An action that is naturally evil in respect of its genus can by no means be good and lawful, since in order for an action to be good, it must be right in every respect, because good results from a complete cause, while evil results from a single defect. Now, a lie is evil in respect of its genus, since it is an action bearing an undue matter. For as words are naturally signs of intellectual acts, it is unnatural and undue for anyone to signify by words something that is not in his mind. Hence, Aristotle says that lying is in itself evil and to be shunned, while truthfulness is good and worthy of praise. Therefore, every lie is a sin, as also Augustine declares. Every lie. He makes no exceptions, okay? Joking around and lying, he says that's a sin. All right, last thing we'll talk about, then we're going to take a break and get your comments and questions. And I'm sure Sissel has taken copious notes and has a lot to talk about here. Okay, then he goes on to say, is every lie a mortal sin? All right, thankfully, he says no. As regards the end in view, a lie may be contrary to charity through being told with the purpose of injuring God. And this is always a mortal sin, for it is opposed to religion, or in order to injure one's neighbor in his person, his possessions, or his good name, and this also is a mortal sin, since it is a mortal sin to injure one's neighbor. And one sins mortally if one has merely the intention of committing a mortal sin. But if the end intended is not contrary to charity, neither will the lie considered under this aspect be a mortal sin, as in the case of a jocose lie where some little pleasure is intended, or in an officious lie, where the good also of one's neighbor is intended. Okay, so what he's talking about here is, you're playing around and you're playing a joke on your friend, and you tell a little lie. Okay, like the other day, so Sissel.
I was just gonna say that.
Luring me into the kitchen. Okay, we'll talk about that next time.
Yes.
So yeah, Sissel told me there was a cockroach in the kitchen. All right, they're trying to lure me in for a birthday celebration. Thomas would say that's wrong. Okay, I know you're just joking around, right?
Mm-hmm.
Venial sin. Okay, Sissel has another venial sin to confess non-sacramentally in the next segment. Okay, the officious lie is when somebody says, "What do you think of this, shirt I'm wearing?" And you think it's hideous, but you say, "I think it's nice. I like that." It's a lie. Okay, all right. So what do you think? Has Thomas gone overboard? Do you agree with this? All right, and again, not everything Thomas says in the Summa is dogma. Not everything. In fact, he gets some things wrong in the Summa. But what do you think? Comment either on our social media platforms or by calling in 877-757-9424, 877-757-9424. This is Back to the Father here in the Guadalupe Radio Network. We are studying the Summa Theologia by St. Thomas Aquinas and leading ourselves back to the Father, our eternal home. We'll be back.
We'll be back with more of Back to the Father after this. Please join the conversation by calling 877-757-9424 or join us on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter.
Your Odyssey begins at the University of Dallas, the premier Catholic liberal arts university in Texas. With campuses in Irving and Italy, UD's rigorous core curriculum sets it apart. An education rooted in the great works of Catholic and Western tradition. An education that ennobles and enables students in the pursuit of wisdom, truth, and virtue. Undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs are available. Start your college odyssey at the University of Dallas today. Go to udallas.edu to learn more.
Thank you for listening to the Guadalupe Radio Network and being part of the family. Families pray for each other. We would be honored if you would let us pray with you and for you. You don't even have to tell us your name. Just go to our website, grnonline.com, or call our prayer request line and leave us a message at 800-395-4008. That's 800-395-4008. We will be praying for you every day.
I don't know why I turned on my radio, because I've kept my radio off for years, because there's so much trash. And once I turned it on, I was absolutely hooked. I actually was gone from the Catholic Church for 35 years. I want to get to heaven. I don't know if I will. I worry about it. But I not only want to get to heaven at the moment of my death, I want to find as much heaven as possible here on earth. I love the shows with a Catholic apologist. I love the shows with the sort of day-to-day psychologist, Greg and Lisa Popchak. I love hearing not just of other people's problems who call in, but I love getting the Catholic take on how to deal with day-to-day reality. If your purpose in life is to find God, not just here, but after you die, then living out that purpose is going to color absolutely everything you do.
The Guadalupe Radio Network, radio for your soul. Welcome back to the Father. To join the conversation, call 877-757-9424. And please join us on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter.
All right, we're back. This is Back to the Father, 24 minutes after the hour. We're glad that you are listening. And go straight to the phones. Sissel is second fiddle to phone calls. Okay, Sissel, I'm sorry.
I will take it.
Even
okay.
with your hat on, you get second fiddle. And so, I called out this well-known Catholic personality on EWTN Catholic Radio. And by golly, he called in. So this is the mystery voice that if you wake up really early in the morning, you hear often. Hey, thanks for calling in, mystery EWTN personality. How are you?
Hey, this is Matt Swain from the Sunrise Morning Show. Did I win the car, or am I ineligible?
Nah, that'd be too fishy, man, if you won.
Oh,
yeah, you're ineligible. Plus, did you even buy any tickets? I mean, come on. Seriously, Matt.
I guess I didn't. I thought that was an employee discount that came in. Well.
You just because...
Oh, well.
Yeah. So, hey, man, thanks for listening. So can you tell us a story about last week about you getting into that little discussion with, was it a Mormon? Was that what happened? Yeah.
Yeah. So, the LDS missionaries, the Latter-day Saints, they can't go door to door because of COVID, so they just call me once a week, and we have interesting discussions. And it just so happened that last week we were talking about the Trinity, and as you know, that is both the easiest thing to explain to like a 3-year-old, but the hardest thing to explain to like a grown person. And so I was trying to go through, Thomas Aquinas and the processions, and the Father proceeds from the Son, or the Son proceeds from the Father, and the Holy Spirit is the love generated from their infinite love. The whole 9 yards. And of course, I'm butchering it as badly now as I was then. And I get in the car immediately afterward to go pick up my son from school, and I flip on the radio, and what do I hear except for you invoking the same exact passage from Thomas Aquinas, except with notes in front of you. And I thought, my goodness, where were you, Dave Palmer, when I was trying to talk to these, nice Mormon ladies earlier?
Yeah,
so
I know. Timing is everything, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, you say they call you every week, and so now
just have Dave on speed dial.
They call you next time. Yeah, you and I, we can get on a group chat with them.
I'll be ready, and I'll be taking some notes about your existence thing. As you were talking about existence, I remember it might have been at a Theology on Tap, but I can't remember where, but I heard a Dominican giving a presentation, and he kind of started it, I think it was a Dominican, by saying, God does not exist. And of course, he got all of our attention immediately. But what he meant by that is essentially what you're saying, that there's not this thing called existence, and God is a category within it.
Yeah.
That God transcends all of it, and all existence kind of is in him. And that's kind of a mind-blowing thing to try and put inside of your skull, but it's just kind of another indication of the infinite nature of God that even somebody like Thomas Aquinas can only kind of gesture at and discuss by analogy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have to use our sense experience to really understand it because it's beyond us. And, Thomas used to literally place his head against the tabernacle so that God would inspire him. He said he learned more through prayer and in front of the adoration in chapel than he did through reading, which says a lot. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I always tell people, I teach high school kids, and I said, if this is confusing to you, then great. You're right where you should be. Because if we could understand God like we can maybe understand our dog or our pet goldfish, then we're really limiting God. He's beyond us. And so we try our best, and we use, like you say, analogy and our own life experience, and just keep on trying. We'll know him better when we get to heaven if we're so blessed.
Yeah, as the old saying goes, a God who's small enough to fit inside your brain isn't big enough to save you. So there's that.
Yeah. Well, hey, Matt, good to hear from you. Thanks so much, and thanks for listening. And do you want to give a little promo for your show in the morning? Anything coming up next week or anything?
Well, we got recaps of the papal visit, which is huge. We've got Father Steve Ryan from the Salesians of Don Bosco for St. Dominic Savio's feast day next week. Yeah, we got a whole bunch of stuff cooking. Really, we're just the opening act, though, for Joe and Emily and Adrian.
Well, they're probably.
As a matter of fact,
yeah.
I was just going to say, I get off the air and immediately take my son to school, and we always are in the car during the game show.
Yeah.
And I just need to make it clear that not even my 9-year-old is fooled by Adrian's misdirection. So.
Well, that's good. Well, Adrian's a regular listener to this, so he probably is listening. So
calling you out, Adrian.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Matt, thanks so much. 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central Time. And Sunrise Morning Show. It's a great show. So thanks so much.
Hey,
good to hear from you, Matt.
Oh, it's
a great weekend.
Very good. Thanks so much. 877-757-9424. 877-757-9424. If you want to push Sissel's comments even further back in the show, go ahead and give us a call. Aaron, I believe, calling from Germantown, Maryland. How you doing? Good afternoon. Thanks for calling.
Hey.
Good evening, I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for calling.
God bless you guys. I was thinking about the comment that you said is a lie, always a lie. I have both volumes of St. Thomas Aquinas on my Audible. They had to break it up into 2 parts because it was too big. But you said, yes, it's always a sin no matter what. So say you're in Nazi Germany and you have a bunch of Jews in your basement, and the Gestapo comes by, the German kill squad knocks on your door and asks you if you're housing, protecting Jews in your basement, and you say, no, I don't know anything about that. Is that still a sin?
Well, that's the classic example of what oftentimes people will use, and I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, the hardliner would say, Thomas, because he makes no exceptions, and so, and there's a principle that says the end never justifies the means. Right? You can never say because there's going to be a good end. Now, am I saying that person should say, oh, yeah, I've got, 10 Jews up in my, attic and come on in, Gestapo man. He is saying it's a venial sin. And so I guess you could, and again, this would be rationalizing and say, I'm going to commit a venial sin here and then go right to confession. Or, but yeah, I think, Thomas would have to say everything that is if something is in your mind and what comes out of your mouth it's disordered. And again, I do not think this is necessarily, dogmatic Catholic doctrine, but I think it makes sense. And I think what we also see, and we're going to talk about this in the next segment, is that we've gotten a little loosey-goosey with the truth, and now we don't know what the world is a truth in our culture today. And so if you open up the door a little bit, what is that thing about the dam where
there's a crack in the dam.
The little crack in the dam, and you say, I can lie here, I can lie there. Cecil is going to tell us about 2 lies that she did just within this week, right? But
yes.
Hey, great call. Is it Aaron? Is that your name?
Yep.
Okay.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Marshall. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking me. It was an insightful answer you gave. You guys just keep on rocking. And I evangelize, I knock on 20 to 30 doors a day, even though it's COVID. I have my mask on. I have my gloves on. I knock and then I stand like 20 feet back.
That's almost sidewalk evangelization at that point.
Then I pray with them if they let me.
Wonderful.
That's awesome.
And it's fertile soil right now. People are scared to death because of COVID. So I've had Muslims pray with me in the name of Jesus, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Jews, Jewish people, atheists, you name Buddhists, you name it, that have been willing to pray. And I haven't stopped since COVID came. I continue to do it. Right now I got gloves and mask on. I'm sitting in my car in Beltsville, in a new neighborhood that I haven't been in, and I'm going to keep on going and use apologetics as best as I can with all the...
Praise God. Yeah. Because people right need the gospel more now perhaps than ever. Absolutely. Hey, Aaron, got to go. Thanks for the call. Really great question and scenario, and thank you for listening very much. And so Bradley in Baytown, if you can hold on a second, I got to go to Cecil because she's got these questions, these notes, and all this. 877-757-9424. All right, Cecil, your long wait is over. So based on what I said, any comments, thoughts, questions, what comes to mind?
Well, I guess I would say that it is interesting. I think you're right, that we're so programmed nowadays that these little lies or how we say things and the truth is getting so muddled that it's so easy to say, and try to justify lying. Because even if I go through in my head, I'm sitting here going, but I don't want to hurt someone's feelings by lying and say that they don't look good. And Dave, do I look good in this hat? Are you going to lie to me right now, or are you going to tell the truth?
Okay. So what's your next point? No, I think it is a cool hat. Okay, I didn't lie.
But it's interesting though, because obviously we get too much, I think, into the feelings a little bit. But I wonder what St. Thomas would say about the way that we tell the truth. Is there anything that he says about that? Like if you're saying truth unkind, like in a unloving way, in a charitable way, let's say.
Well, it's funny. I used the example in my class one time. This lady in this hideous dress, and she said, what do you think of my dress? And one of my students said, well, say I like the color.
Find something you can say without lying.
It's a beautiful color, right? And so I mean the example that Aaron gave with the Gestapo. I mean that's
straight up.
And it seems it's a hypothetical, but that really did happen.
I mean, it could really happen sometime in the future.
Was it Anne Frank or was up in somebody's and so that really did happen. That's really life and death. And so again. Sometimes there's extreme examples, but generally speaking, those kind of things aren't happening in our everyday life, but we are finding times when people will say, "Did you like that report?" "Oh yeah, it's great. It's great." I think we're so
used to being very nice and going around
and
each other's,
they're liking everything on Facebook. "Oh, I like that. I like that." We're in a very much everything's
there's not
great.
even is there even a dislike button on Facebook these days? I don't know. No, there isn't.
I don't think so. So, all right. So hold that thought. Great call. Let me go to Bradley in Baytown, who has called in. This is Back to the Father on the Guadalupe Radio Network. 877-757-9424. We're going through the Summa Theologia, talking about truth and falsity and lies today. Bradley, thanks for the call. What's your comment or question?
I wanted to say, can you hear me fine?
Yes, I can.
Sorry.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, cool. I've never done this before, calling into a show. No, I wanted to say thank you for bringing this up. I didn't even realize why this bothered me so much this last year. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and in my house growing up, I was born and raised Catholic, and we gave gifts from Santa Claus and all those sorts of things. But I felt like some of my family, like, they made a bigger deal out of Santa Claus this year with my little one, and like to the point where they even like printed out a letter and like the cookies and all that sort of stuff. And a part of it bothered me for some reason, and I felt silly, like, why should I be bothered by this? But when you break it down to all of this, I mean, I knew at the time it felt silly because it felt like a lie, but then I just kind of pushed it aside, like, oh well, I guess it's not that big a deal. But it's like a part of me inherently knew that I just didn't like lying to my 5-year-old because, in her mind, if I'm going to lie to her about Santa one day, I'm going to lie to her about something else.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually participate in the lie, but I definitely didn't say anything against it.
And, that's a great example. And, Aaron gave us that one that, very few of us are ever going to actually encounter, but it is a real situation. At least it was back in World War II and could happen again. But yours is a real life example. And I got to admit, Bradley, I totally understand what you say, but we have actually done the Santa Claus thing with our kids. I got a 7-year-old son right now. We did it last Christmas, but you're right. I mean, it's a lie, Now, again, does that mean we never, I think parents can make up their own mind, but St. Thomas Aquinas would say, yeah, it's still a lie, right? So I mean, what do you think? That's great. It's a great example.
One other thing I could bring up, I'm a middle school teacher, and and I grew up in a big family, fourth kid out of 5, and big by today's standards. And I used to joke and say I was fluent in sarcasm, that my family would, always be teasing each other one way or another. But I found out from teaching, some kids could handle that and were used to it, and some kids weren't, and so it's just something that sometimes if you say something that's disingenuous, or it would really take a toll on some of the kids if they weren't used to it, if they weren't fluent in sarcasm.
Yeah.
I used to think just, maybe the kids just don't get it, but then I think I started to realize more, no, sarcasm just tends to be hurtful, it kind of goes back to that same thing. Like, you either say what you're going to say or you don't,
Yeah.
And I just thought it was one more thing worth bringing up.
And have you ever met somebody that is just like brutally honest? And I have my stepfather he's an engineer, and he's just one of these guys that just tells the truth. And if he's listening, he listens to this show, and if I go to him and say, hey, what do you think of the show? And if he says, I liked it, I know he's being honest, he's not lying, but because he would say, I thought it stunk, and sometimes those kind of people are really refreshing.
It's refreshing. It throws you off guard at first, but then you kind of are like, oh, I actually really genuinely appreciate this.
Yeah. So, I've often thought, I think most of us are just used to lying to make people feel good. Cecil, you mentioned about the feelings. And so, hey, that's a really great comment. And I appreciate you calling in. Do you have you ever studied the Summa before, Bradley, or had you had any familiarity with it?
No, not really at all. It's kind of been on my heart a little bit. Something spoke to me a long time ago when I got confirmed, and I picked Thomas as my confirmation saint, but I've never really dived in. So it's been kind of interesting listening to your show on the way home from work the past few weeks.
Great. And since you're a teacher, you get off a little earlier. You're not working the 9 to 5, right? That's awesome.
I actually am off the clock at 3 o'clock. I rarely leave that soon, but it's a beautiful
You
thing.
never do you?
It gives you an hour to prepare for this show, right?
Oh, God bless you for being a middle school teacher.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. Great to hear from you. Bradley there in Baytown. Good. Appreciate the call. And I have just lost my stack. So, Diane, you're going to have to tell me if anybody else calls in. We got to take a break? Okay.
I have a comment. Olivia called in, and she just wanted to make a point about the Jews thing you talked about, protecting the Jews.
Yeah.
But she said she learned a priest had told her that not everybody has the right to know everything that you know. And this principle, she learned from a priest. And so you're not lying. You just don't have to, don't have the right to know.
Yeah, that's and again, this is like I said, this is not dogma. This is, but Thomas does not give any exceptions, and he also quotes Aristotle and he quotes Augustine in agreement with him. But I think this is something that we could certainly disagree on, and but I like how. Yeah, the comments and the questions were really good.
Absolutely.
So, all right, do you want to give a couple of your examples of little white lies that you told during this week?
It's so funny. I had no idea that this was going to be the topic of discussion, and apparently my life just was preparing me for this. So
Yes.
Dave kind of alluded to the one slightly funny one, very lacking seriousness was it was Dave's birthday yesterday, and Diana and I wanted to surprise him with a cake, and so we set it up in the kitchen, and I had to lure Dave into the kitchen, and so I told him that there was a cockroach in there. He's saved me from cockroaches before, so it wasn't a completely unreasonable idea.
I totally bit too.
We had a whole conversation about how we kill cockroaches and everything on the way into the kitchen and everything. Of course, that was a lie. It was a lie. Now, I would be interested in hearing, Dave, maybe on the other side of the break, if you would consider that would be a lie that I should confess. What should that be, something confessed, or that be close to scrupulosity, on something like that, something curious. My other one, this one I do actually feel very, very bad about. A very nice gentleman, I was grocery shopping the other day and followed me out and asked me out, and I was
random guy
I'd never met before, didn't even have an interaction in the store, asked me out, and I felt really badly, and I was so thrown off guard. And normally I'm very polite, very, I have something to say where I'm firm, but if I'm turning someone down, and I just panicked and I said, I'm in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And in my head, I immediately said, with Jesus.
Yeah.
To try to cover.
Which is
true. What I should have, there's better things I should have said, but immediately, Dave, this show is getting to me, because immediately the first thing I thought is St. Thomas is saying that's a lie. You lied, Sissel.
Yeah.
And so I feel really badly. So if that gentleman is, listening and a girl turned you down outside of a Tom Thumb, I'm sorry. I was not in a relationship. I'm in a relationship with Jesus. I am so sorry.
Yeah, that's
for lying.
And there's also something to say about not having enough time to really think about it. It's like somebody who utters a word that they wouldn't normally say when they hit their finger with a hammer. And that wasn't really something that they thought about ahead of time. So sorry to compare him asking you out to getting hit with a hammer, but
there's something to be said, though, that as a culture, I think we always feel like we have to answer something right away too.
Yeah.
There is something about taking a moment.
It is. So, all right, those are good examples. And when we come back, we're going to take a break here in a moment. We want to get some more of your calls. Talking about lying, St. Thomas Aquinas says lying is always wrong. It's always a sin. Sometimes it's a venial sin, even if it's I do jocose lies all the time, to my girls especially. I just love, joking around with them. But do you agree or disagree? Maybe there's some scenarios in your life as well. But this is also, and on a much more serious level, we can talk about these lying, but what impact is it going to make where we are being forced, in some cases, by our government to lie? Okay, we had that really classic example from the University of Dallas where Dr. Dave Upham came under a lot of fire for merely saying on his private social media platform that the assistant director of Health and Human Services, who goes by Dr. Rachel Levine, was born a male, fathered 2 children, and went through, I think, some kind of surgery and hormone treatment, and now is calling himself a woman. And Dave Upham pointed that out, and he also said, you know what? We're going to be forced to lie. Now, this is a lot different than talking to a guy in a parking lot or even Santa Claus. This is serious, serious business. But it's something that at some point we're going to have to, and this is where this teaching is so applicable. If God is truth and the truth resides originally in God and in natural things, and lying is a sin, many of us are going to be put in very, very bad predicaments where we are going to have to choose between perhaps mortally sinning and, having some kind of repercussions, because no can do. A lot of us are just going to say, I can't do that. I can't play that game. So take a break, Diane. All right, let's take a break. Come back. This is Back to the Father. We're talking about St. Thomas Aquinas and the Summa Theologia. If you want to join us, 877-757-9424. We'll be back.
We'll be back with more of Back to the Father after this. Please join the conversation by calling 877-757-9424 or join us on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter.
The universe is filled with order from top to bottom. And it's a beautiful order. And not only is it beautiful, it's order that we can actually comprehend. And it's almost as if we have been made to be able to comprehend that order in the universe, to be able to contemplate it so that we can see maybe that purpose behind it.
Please visit Father Spitzer's website, magicenter.com, to watch this beautiful and important video about purpose and God's creation. That's magiscenter.com.
Instead of fighting the crowds, isn't it so much easier to hop online and do your shopping in the comfort of your own home? Did you know that you can help the Guadalupe Radio Network when you shop online? All you need to do is shop on Amazon Smile, and 0.5% of your purchase goes to the GRN. Just go to amazonsmile.com and select La Promesa Foundation as your nonprofit of choice. La Promesa is the parent company of Guadalupe Radio. It's that simple to give a little extra help to the Guadalupe Radio Network.
Why did we choose Our Lady of Guadalupe as the patroness of the Guadalupe Radio Network? Nearly 500 years ago, the greatest evangelization movement in the history of the Americas occurred when Our Lady of Guadalupe appeared to Juan Diego. It was the beginning of the greatest mass conversion in religious history. Would you agree that today we are in need of a similar renewal in our culture where godlessness is becoming mainstream? That is why we dedicated our radio network to Our Lady of Guadalupe. Radio is the most powerful and intimate tool of evangelization. Catholic radio not only provides us evangelization, but it does so in an exciting and joyful way. We, together with you, our GRN family, are working to ensure that these radio waves continue to go out to millions of souls in order to be a great source of comfort, hope, and consolation. This is Len Oswald, President of the GRN, with your GRN Family Minute.
Welcome back to the Father. To join the conversation, call 877-757-9424. And please join us on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter.
All right, we're back. This is the last segment of this week's edition of Back to the Father. We're going through the Summa Theologia, the journey of life, focused on our final end. Dave Palmer, Cecil Anderson, Diane, and Jonathan, and you. And thanks for those calls. In fact, we have another call that we're going to go to in just a moment. But don't forget, if you go to our social media platforms, the handle is at GRN. I got Jonathan. I'm getting cotton mouth, so I asked Jonathan if he could go get me some water. And Jonathan's a big guy. Jonathan's like over 6 feet tall, and so he's didn't want to get in the shot, so he's crawling underneath me.
His goal of being subtle just was ruined because we started laughing.
Oh gosh! All right, Paul and Hoover, we'll get you in just a second. But I just want to mention one quick thing. If you have a little time for some weekend reading and you want to spend about 30 minutes reading one of my favorite papal encyclicals that ties in so much to everything that we're talking about in this show, Leo XIII, Aeterni Patris, the restoration of Christian philosophy according to the mind of St. Thomas Aquinas, he warns in that encyclical that the danger that society and education and the arts and culture at large is facing is bad philosophy. Okay, he wrote it in 1879, and I just want to say before we go to Paul and Hoover, a couple of people that I think philosophers that pertain to what we're talking about right now with a confusion about truth. First of all, one of them is Rene Descartes. Okay, he is a French philosopher who died in 1650. So he's basically a 17th century philosopher. And his famous line is, "I think, therefore I am." Okay? This this was problematic in many ways. Okay, that's classic rationalism. It divorces the mind from the body, the sense experience, the empiricism. All right, so very problematic, and that's definitely somebody that Leo would have had in mind. Another one, perhaps more problematic, is Emmanuel Kant, a German philosopher, died in 1804, so basically 18th century philosopher, and he had what's called the Copernican revolution in philosophy. Okay, and let me just read this. Let me see if I can find this. Okay, he said, "The structure of the human mind shapes all sensory experience and thought. The mind has an active role in producing our conception of reality by acting as a filter, an organizer, and an enhancer." Okay, so rather than the truth being an objective reality in the mind of God, Kant comes around and said, and the reason why he called it the Copernican revolution in philosophy, because Copernicus came around and said, okay, no, it's not that the sun, the earth, it's not that the sun revolves around the earth, it's the earth revolving around the sun. And of course, he was right about that. Mm-hmm. But now he is saying that Kant turned epistemology inside out by theorizing that objective reality depends on the mind instead of the other way around. Okay? So you can see when people are now saying, I identify as this, or I identify as a different gender, and I think I'm this, or I think I'm that. This wasn't invented, in the last 50 years. This is a series of problematic philosophies going back hundreds of years. And what does Leo think is the solution? Thomistic philosophy, and getting it back in schools and on the radio. Hey, that'd be a clever idea. Do it on the radio, huh? All right.
He was promoting us that long ago.
Yeah, I think he would have promoted this show. All right, Paul in Hoover, Alabama has called in. Paul, thanks for the call. What's your comment or question here on the program?
Yes, hi, Dave. Thanks for taking my call. I wanted to make a distinction about lying that I think is really important, and it's something I tell my kids, and that is that in order for it to really be a lie, it has to be you have to consider the intent. In other words, is someone intending to deceive you? So, for example, if you make a joke on your radio show, or you play an April Fool's prank on someone, or you just tell a joke, that may be funny, and you were not intending to actually deceive anyone. Or even like your co-host mentioned that she was trying to spare somebody's feelings. I don't know necessarily that I would even categorize that as a lie. For example, if your wife says, do I look fat in this dress?
It's dangerous territory.
Say, no, honey, you look great. So that's my 2 cents. I wanted to mention that. I think that lie and truth is a very important topic, so I'm glad you're talking about it today.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate the call, Paul. Glad you're listening there in Mother Angelica land in Alabama. So, thank you so much. And I'll just comment on that. Well, first of all, and I'm trying to find my slide from the Summa, is that basically, Thomistic philosophy and moral theology would tell us that in order for something to be a good act, it has to be right in every regard, which means, as you mentioned, Paul, the intention has to be good, the object has to be good, the action has to be good, circumstances, everything has to come together. But if any one of those things is off, the action can have a degree of evilness. Okay, so the example would be the church basket comes around at Mass, and you see somebody behind you that you want to impress. Maybe it's, some girl you want to impress or something, so you drop a $20 bill in there. You don't really care about helping the church or, but you really just want to impress somebody. Well, that is objectively an evil act because the intention was bad. So I guess I would have to somewhat disagree with you, Paul. I appreciate it. I think intention is part of it, but I think the whole act has to match up, and every part of it has to be good, because we can't be judged just on intentions. I'll give you the last word. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm glad you brought up that example, Dave, and I think we're actually talking on the same side because I think in that case where a gentleman may may donate to the church, but he's donating specifically to intend on deceiving the girl, to to make her think that he's generous and maybe wealthy. So I think his intent is to deceive in that case, and I would agree that that is tantamount to a lie.
Okay. Well, so we're pretty much on the same page. Hey, Paul, thanks so much. I'm glad you're listening. Glad you're out there. I got to go because we're down to our last couple of minutes here, but thank you very much for that call. They're in Hoover, Alabama. We got some good calls today.
Some excellent
those were
calls
awesome. Thanks to all of them. I just want to mention, as I kind of have implied, that probably the biggest and most real case of lying that's really kind of hitting us in the face these days is this whole idea of, quote, misgendering. And misgendering is referred to as using a word, especially a pronoun or form of address that does not currently reflect the gender with which they identify. Many people say, hey, if this guy wants to be considered a woman and you're looking at him and he's got a beard and speaks, with a deeper voice than me and he's got male genitalia, many people in our culture are saying we gotta say it's a woman, and I think we can't. I mean, we cannot lie. Okay, I think we'd all agree on that. But the bad part is that this is what is coming upon us, and so we have to be able to connect it back to God. Okay, because we have to be able to come together with a logical reason of why it's wrong to lie. And all the other examples, Santa Claus and the Gestapo and all that, these are good examples as well. But this is one that's hitting us in the face, and that's why this stuff matters, and it's applicable to the 21st century. Sissel, anything else you want to say? We're just about out of time.
No, I was just going to say my favorite thing I think I learned today is I never really thought about lying is the idea of there's a disorder between what's in your head and your mouth. And I think that's a really good visual, I think, for people when we are, maybe saying those little white lies that don't seem to be doing much of anything. Just remembering that that's something that's disordered.
Yeah, because there's a certain integrity, If I say, oh, I love that dress, and I'm like, no, I don't. All right, thanks, Sissel, Diane, Jonathan. Thanks, everybody, for listening. God bless you, and we'll see you next week for the next Back to the Father here on the Guadalupe Radio Network.
Thanks for joining us for Back to the Father. And don't forget, the glory of God is the human person fully alive. If you have comments about the show, email Dave Palmer at grnonline.com.
Are you looking for a full or part-time office for you or your team? WorkSuites provides workspace offices for individuals and small team businesses. WorkSuites, a new sponsor of KATH 910 AM, is owned by Flip Howard from St. Thomas Aquinas Parish in Dallas. WorkSuites offices are designed to cultivate a community of professionals working together to accomplish their business goals. WorkSuites invites you to give them a call at 888-312-WORK or visit their website at worksuites.com to see if it fits your business needs.
Hi, I'm Christian Hamrick, a senior from the Diocese of Nashville, discerning my vocation at Holy Trinity Seminary. This Lent, my brother seminarians and I invite you to join us as we accompany Jesus on his journey to the cross. To help you on your journey, each day during the liturgical